Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson. I have the lovely Jen Gagnon here as a guest today. Jen is the owner of Soulistic Vibes, which is a cool, healing space, workout space, kind of mind, body, and soul space. She also is a life coach. She runs different types of businesses. She has her fingers in all kinds of things, and she's changing the world one group of women at a time. So welcome to my phenomenal guest, Jen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It has been a while since we've had a conversation. And as usual, so much changes in our lives. We were just talking about it before we got on today. And I wanted to ask you, before we start deep diving into all of the cool things you're doing, what was this past year, 2022, about for you? What did you kind of learn about yourself, and what were some of the things you noticed coming up for you during the year?
I think I had a reminder that there's always a deeper layer, a deeper knowing, a deeper trust that's to be had. That, healing isn't linear and you can't take care of an issue once and be done. And I think I stepped more into my power in the sense of really trusting that I didn't need anything or anyone outside of myself to get to where I'm going.
Huge.
My feelings on me. Yeah. Yeah.
Huge.
Yes. I had kind of stepped in that direction, but I still had a little remnant of, the not knowing enough, that there's somebody out there that has a better understanding, a better knowledge. And then I came to the realization that the only knowledge necessary for my healing, for my journey, is mine. It's great to get input and have exchanges, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to me and my inner compass, and I need to be able to really harness that.
And the discernment piece, I think, is so important.
Yes.
What I learned personally, similar to you, because we always tend to be, we're always kind of walking right next to each other on our journey, right? It's so interesting to me, and I'm so grateful for you. But what I found also something similar was, it's hard when you build trust with somebody you get information from, because I think then you start to just take everything in as truth, as the only way things can be done. And you start to put your discernment down because you have this blind faith. But one of the biggest lessons for me last year was, just like you, that we needed to always use our discernment and trust ourselves and have 100,000% confidence that we are guiding ourselves home and we have everything we need to follow our own path. That was so huge for me to come to that realization. So
yeah, it's pretty powerful. And like you said, discernment is key, and not taking everything at face value. And, somebody else's truth isn't necessarily my truth, and that's okay. It's okay for me. It's okay for everybody else. But yeah, discernment has been huge, and really like refining what that means, because at a certain point on my journey, I thought, I was pretty good at discerning, and there were still some lessons that came up for me to realize that, well, maybe not, maybe I wasn't there quite yet. And even now, it's always about questioning myself, question my truth. This is what I believe in this moment. This is what I feel. And it's always about what I feel more than what I believe.
100%. It's the frequency, right? The frequency of truth, really. And also, like we were saying, there's layers and layers to every issue that we heal. And I used to get so upset when I would be circling back and I'd be like, oh my God, my ego again. So upset, so frustrated. Like, I thought
I've
I
been there,
through
done
this.
that, like
here it is again, round 18.
Yeah.
with my ego, So yeah, there's just so many deeper layers. And I love that you had the space and the discernment and the time that you created to it's just come to those deeper levels of understanding.
And it's a work in progress every single day. You know, there's not one day that goes by that I don't find myself in a moment of awareness, asking myself, am I being who I need to be right in this moment? And so when I catch myself, it's kind of, I don't know, to me, it's always like, oh, like I'm in this moment of awareness now, and now I get to choose what my next steps going to be. And regardless, sometimes it's the mundane things, right? Oh, do I clean this, or do I go do this? What does my body need in this moment? Or all those little moments of awareness where I'm fine tuning the discernment. I'm listening to my body more. I'm listening to that inner guidance. And it's like every single day, it's work that gets to be done.
100%. But I also think that every choice that you make that's in alignment makes it easier for you to remain in alignment, because it becomes such a moment to moment practice. You start to just live in alignment. And when you're in that zone and in that column of light within yourself, and that knowing and trust, and in the practice of it so consistently, whenever we kind of just veer off a little bit,
oh yeah,
the feeling is so, the distortion is so great. It's so forward that you come right back. You're like, oh no, you come right back. But it's a practice, right? It's years and years of conscious choosing.
Yep. And that's like, I think that's the other thing too that I had to like really grasp, is that and it's a beautiful thing that the work will never be done. It's always, we're always evolving and growing. And like we were saying earlier, it's like we reach this height, so to speak, and it's like, oh wow, there's even more, like it can be amplified, you know?
It feels infinite to me in the potential for us to expand, not only in consciousness, but also in our human life. Because I went through this, I don't know if you went through this phase on my spiritual journey, but I definitely went through this phase because I was a perfectionist. I had perfectionist tendencies, right? So I went through this phase where it was like, I need to be, it has to look this way. So my spiritual journey has to look this way, which means I'm happy. Everything's positive. Everything unfolds in a certain way. And then what is so funny about that, now that I've healed and done so much work, right, is I realized, no, that was basically spiritually bypassing the whole point.
I've done so much of that in the past, and like,
under the guise
of, until you know, right?
You don't know until you know. But and from that level of consciousness and from my unhealed self, that's what I thought it had to look like. So I was doing all these things that were not in alignment necessarily, with a smile on my face, that I was sacrificing and being in service in a spiritual way, but still like not in an authentic and aligned, empowered soul alignment way. But when we're in the bandwidth, it's so hard, isn't it, to see outside ourselves. We're too close to see the truth.
Yes. And that's one thing that I keep practicing is like taking a step back and removing me, right, from the equation, and asking myself, is this right? Is this aligned? Is this, is this the next step? Is this where I need to be, where I desire to be? And it's challenging. It's very easy like to read that, or to say, okay, I'm going to remove myself, but to actually do it is quite challenging, because like you said, the ego wants to come in and say, but
question, convince, talk you into anything that's not necessarily aligned. Detachment,
like the whole positivity, it's like there's too much, it's like there are certain moments where we have to, in order to stand in our sovereignty, kind of speak up, and it's not in a negative way, it's just our truth in that moment that gets to be spoken.
I totally agree. And I believe that the mastery is being in this neutrality and being able to slide both ways. Like we are the full spectrum, creator, destroyer, and we maintain this inner harmony and balance. But if we have to slide this way, and be in someone's face and be aggressive and really forward, we can, and then we come back to center, or we can be just complete love and light, the God frequency over here. But the key for us in the mastery, right, is always to be centered and present and know when we need to slide right or left, right? And that detachment, I don't know, the detachment was a real mastery piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we say that, maybe you could speak to that, because people might be like, what does that mean? You don't care, like you detach. What does that mean? And maybe
when I first heard somebody talk about detachment, that's what I was feeling. It's like, well, how can I not care? How can I detach? And it's not about not caring. It's about not expecting or being attached to the outcome. I think a lot of times we're attached to our significant other as if they were our possession.
Yes.
And I truly believe that in order to love unconditionally, we have to detach, right? We get to be detached, but still in a loving way.
Mm-hmm.
We get to be detached from the final outcome and just enjoy the journey on the way. I think so many of us, and including myself, spend so many years goal driven and goal focused that we kind of missed the whole point of the whole journey, because we were so focused on the goal. And I think the other thing with that is that the more attached we are to something, the more we notice it's not here. So, whether it's that new house or that new job or whatever it is that we're attached to as the end game, we keep focusing on the fact that it's not there yet because we're attached and focused.
We're never present. We're not
right.
present in the now moment, because your eyes on the prize. So you're always 10 steps ahead, or the to-do list is driving you instead of being super present in the moment. And I've seen this beautiful evolution, I think, in both of us, where we've been able to kind of now give ourselves permission to rest if we need to rest, or be silent.
And that was hard for me. Oh my gosh, so hard for me. I am like the go-ist person. And it's been really hard to say it's okay for me. Like even meditating, to sit in silence and just, it was really challenging because there were so many other things that I should be doing, and now it's kind of like, okay, my body needs to rest right now, or, I need to breathe. I need to do breath work. I need to, what my body needs in that moment. And I kind of listen a lot more than I used to. Before it was kind of like, okay, I'll do that later,
Right. And to have the awareness that that's a huge and integral part of your daily practice that keeps you centered and grounded, I think is really powerful, because a lot of people want to fit that in, like calendar that in somehow.
Yeah.
And that's different from having it become an expression of you and just part of your daily practice and how you live your life. It's not something that you schedule per se, but it's just part of who you are and how you flow in your life.
It took some scheduling at the beginning, to be able to get to this point. It's almost like even the gratitude in the morning. Like I have this practice, and it's not, I don't call it a practice because it's just innate. I wake up in the morning and I'm
That's
just
what I
so
mean.
incredibly grateful for.
Yeah.
And it took some practice. And again, like everything else, it's a work in progress. Now it's innate. It's like second nature. But it took those moments of reminding myself, okay, no, I'm not getting out of bed yet. I want to lean into gratitude, but it's about doing the work to get to the
consciousness in the beginning, right? We have to consciously choose.
Yes.
And you consciously choose it, and you choose it day after day. And then it becomes a part of who you are and a part of your daily practice without you having to consciously choose, because you've already chosen it.
Yes. It's just like the awareness, I think, too. It's like I find myself so many times in a day in those moments of like just pure awareness. Whereas before it was kind of like, maybe once a week, I'd find myself actually recognizing I was in that moment of awareness. And now it's like, I recognize it, but again, it's like just second nature. So there's not as much emphasis on it, I should say. But it's pretty cool to notice the shifts that happen when we actually do the work. And like you said, the rather than bypassing and forcing things, kind of allowing them to unfold and then, being aware of it.
I think the beautiful thing about you is you have done the work. You have to do the work to be able to assist others through the work. It's not an academic mental ego exercise. This is like such a deep and rich soul journey. And I don't feel that we could be as impactful in serving the people that we serve without having gone through all of these layers and struggles and different energetic frequencies ourselves.
Yes.
Because I think it allows us to have more compassion towards the people we serve because we have been there ourselves.
Yes. Yes. Without a doubt.
And that's the biggest gift. Not that we go through the struggles consciously to be able to be in service, but that certainly does allow us to have tremendous compassion for people who are not seeing themselves with love, treating themselves with the honor and the respect and kindness that they deserve. And to speak to that, I know you do a lot of coaching, and you also do a lot of you're doing retreats, which is so excited. So I wanted to make sure we talked about this upcoming retreat that you're putting together in France, which is
Yes. Very exciting.
amazing. So,
Yes.
so tell us a little bit about how that decision came about, and then give us some of the details.
So I've had in the past few weeks to a month, past clients come back and ask me when the next retreat was. And it had kind of been on the back burner, just because there were so many things happening life-wise, energetically, and figuring out what the next move or step was going to be for me. But I truly and deeply love running retreats. The last one in Costa Rica was just incredible. The souls that join me on these retreats, it's always amazing and amazes me how perfect, it's orchestrated.
Yeah.
And so after having, past clients reach out and ask when the next retreat was going to be, I kind of felt the pull that like this was the time. And typically I like to have like a 6 to 8 month window to kind of give time and space for everybody to, and this time it was like, no, it's going to be at the end of April or beginning of April. And that's it. So I was like, okay, I'll go with that, And again, it comes back to that inner feeling for me. For me, it's a knowing, a feeling, and I kind of trust that. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. And
That's
I'm
the
like,
hardest part, right? Where you're like, that seems awfully fast.
yes. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going. There's something that needs to happen in that space that I feel.
Yeah.
And so, so we had been to the south of France. We've been to France 5-6 years ago. We went to Paris, and the city's beautiful, but I'm not very much of a city person. I like the ocean, the mountains, the quiet, the calm. And we went to the southern France in November and went again over the holidays with the children. And I felt that was where the retreat got to happen. We have a catamaran out there, so it'll be great to go and tour the southern coast of France. And I found the property, and everything kind of just lined up.
All this coalesces when you're aligned, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're able to just trust yourself and be like, okay, I'm going to commit to this. It all just like kind of.
It does. It really does. And the space, the town is a little quaint town, a port town. Life is slow there, which is what I love. Costa Rica was kind of, Costa Rica has my heart as well because of that. It's kind of like a slower pace of life. People actually take time to enjoy each other. The Mediterranean is just amazing. There's a lot to do. Medieval towns. It's just great to see the architecture and see how, things have stayed untouched for so long and are still, standing. And there's just a lot to kind of take in from that space. And so when I run retreats, I love the healing, I love the inner work, but I also love, let's get into the culture, the tradition, and the space, and actually get to know where we're at. And so there's just that component too that the south of France brings. And so for me, it's like to spend a whole week just doing healing and diving deep. I feel like it's a lot and it's intense. And I feel
I
like we
think
can
that
get
it's
caught up.
beautiful you offer these excursions too, so people actually get to see some
Yes.
of the city and some of the sites as well. So that's nourishing in its own way, right?
Yes. Because for me, it's about I think we have such a fast paced life for most of us.
Mhm.
And taking time for us is kind of something we're going to do later, as we say. And so for me, it's really about it's about creating a space for these women to come and just allow themselves to receive and to be fully seen, heard, and supported. And I feel also that a lot of times that the whole healing and the journey can get a little bit much for some. It's kind of like you need to heal and then heal and then heal and then heal. And it's almost like you get into this obsession of like digging out a wound. And for
Yes. I've
me,
seen that so many times, and we've seen that in people around us, right? Where they get really deep in the suffering of it and they
yes.
can't
And for
stop
me,
suffering.
I kind of came because I felt like I was doing that at a point in my journey. It was like, okay, what's the next wound that I get to heal? What's the next thing that I get to dig into? And I came to realize for me, my truth is that anything that I need to heal is going to come up for me at the exact moment that it needs to be dealt with. And I don't need to go looking for it.
Yes.
Whereas before it was like, let me just like dig and dig and dig. And it was just like I was almost perpetuating the wound or the hurt. And so for these women that are joining me, I feel like it's something that I want them to actually discover too, is that healing isn't linear. And although, it's not a once and done thing, you can heal so much in little time, like linear time, because things just, when you're in the right space, when you're in the right environment, when you're using the right tools for you,
Mhm.
things can shift fast. And so creating a space where women get to um, utilize different tools and techniques to kind of find, because I'm also of the opinion that not one size fits all. So one technique might be really, really powerful for one woman, whereas the other is going to be, for the other. And so to give them the opportunity to kind of see what works for them best, work on some healing, but also then go out and allow yourself to receive. Because I think that's one of the biggest things as women, anyways, is allowing ourselves to receive is really hard because we're so used to doing it all for everybody.
It's huge. It's
And I
huge.
think that in of itself is healing, to allow yourself to receive,
Definitely.
in a massive way can be really healing. So
I think
for me, it's
also,
really a combination of all of that.
I love that. I think also so many women are so used to being in service at their expense.
Yes.
And in that kind of space, there's this layer of unworthiness, like I don't deserve to receive. I don't
Mm-hmm.
deserve to have abundance. I don't deserve anything because I'm supposed to be in service only. And a lot of people equate service with suffering. So it's beautiful you're offering this experience. And how can people, sign up or reach out?
They can email me. They can find me on Facebook or Instagram. It's happened so fast that I don't even actually have a sales page. My plan is to work on one this week if I don't fill all the spots. But yeah,
I know I have a
email
feeling by the time this comes out, you'll probably be sold out because I think it's
maybe. Yes,
obviously a uh,
yes,
limited time or space
yes. Because
only.
this retreat is going to be smaller, just because of roads and cars and
Just
the logistics.
logistics, right?
Yeah,
Logistics.
yeah.
So how many spaces do you have currently available?
I'll six technically. I'll move it up to seven if I had an instance where I had one seventh person kind of come in and want to squeeze in, but 6 to 7 will be my max. Just because of the things we're doing also.
Well, I feel there's also a power in intimacy
Yes.
and not being kind of lost in the group because a lot of
Yeah.
people are really shy about speaking in large
Mm-hmm.
groups and stuff. So I
Yes.
kind of feel like this could be really powerful for
Yes.
anyone attending. So thank you for being you and doing the work you do. And I see future events in your life. Do you
Yeah. Yeah.
have a page or a web page or something where you put that up, or how can people follow you? Just social media? Or?
Social media, and then there's the jengagnon.rocks website, and there's also the soulalisticvibes.com website. I try to keep them both up to date, but there are definitely going to be more retreats in the future, because I do feel like that's kind of the route I'm veering towards. There'll still be some, mentorship and coaching, but the retreats definitely, hopefully, will be happening a few times a year in different locations. Right now, I have Quebec, Costa Rica, and now the south of France. So we'll see where else the world.
Amazing. You're so inspiring. That's so exciting. And I know that whoever attends is going to get so much out of it. It's just going to continue to grow. And I love that you can be in service to these groups of women who are looking for a little bit more. I think so many people are traveling this journey alone.
Yes.
And they're not really sure where to go to find support. So do you still do you mostly do groups, or do you do one-on-one coaching anymore?
I still do one-on-one. I had kind of again, taken a step back this past year to reorganize, reanalyze. But yes, one-on-one, I do group. My groups is mostly, I have the Holistic Vibes Mastermind, which is, it's a group where we really work and discuss all of what we're discussing today. I truly and firmly believe that health is of the mind, body, and spirit. And if we're lacking in one area or the other, it kind of takes off kill. And so for me, it's really important to help women kind of create their own balance too. I feel like a lot of times it's about taking one method or one, here's your layout, here's your plan, and this is what everybody's going to do. And for me, it's more of kind of a customized approach. Even in my group programs, I like to speak with women and see where they're at and kind of help them from there in finding which aspects of their lives, how can they bring themselves back into harmony, into congruency for them, in the speediest way, without bypassing. It's still about doing the work, but also not becoming obsessed, like I was saying earlier, right, about just rehashing, old things. How can we move forward from this point? Because I feel like a lot of times on the healing journey, we hold ourselves in the past so much that we can't be here and we can't move forward. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's important to, how can I be present and aware as much as possible and have goals, but how can I enjoy the journey there? How can I feel abundant now? How can I bring joy now? How can I create it?
It only starts in the now moment. Everything in our lives is springboard from this now moment. So if you're not in the now moment, you're not in a creator space.
Yeah. Right. And I find that, for me, I've spent so much of my time rehashing the past, thinking that was the healing, to realize that some of it was, but a lot of it was just redundant and kind of looking for something, to find.
It's hard because we don't know what we don't know. Yes. Right. And so that's why it's, I think, helpful to step outside of the comfort zone and go to a retreat, or step out of the comfort zone and seek out someone like us that does this kind of soul work. And it's really important also for people to understand that your journey is unique. Yes. It does not look like anyone else's journey. It's specific to you, and you don't have to follow this roadmap specifically. You can go any direction. You can go up or down. You can go forward or back. You can go fast or slow. It's completely dictated by you. Yes. And so many people are conditioned to follow the conventional path. Yeah. And
or what's them as the right way,
Well, the people who have benefited from that path are going to convince you that their way is the way. Yes. But your way is the way.
And harnessing that connection to yourself to the point where you can listen to that guidance, I think, is huge. And with a lot of women I work with, that's the main component. Be aware and connect to you. And what are you trying to guide yourself to do or to be, right? where are you leading yourself, not where, that coach is leading you, or not where that friend of yours is telling you need to go. What do you feel within you?
Anyone who is doing this kind of leadership work, soul leadership work, is redirecting the individual back to themselves 100% of the time. Like, our job is not to fix anyone or give them all the answers or say, you have to be here, then you have to be here, then you have to be here. We're about allowing people to trust their inner knowing and go wherever that leads them. I just don't believe there are any wrong directions. Everything's an experience. Everything is a learning and growth opportunity. Whether you go this way and it takes a little bit longer because there's more obstacles, or you take the easier way.
Yes.
You're still going
And
to
if
get
there's more obstacles, there were still things that we needed to learn. I think even for myself, if an obstacle arises, I've kind of, I used to be of the mindset, okay, why is this happening to me? Like, I'm doing the work. Why is this coming up? And now it's like, oh, okay, well, there's something in this. Right. And I always come back to, there's no good or bad, but everything's happening for me. So there's obviously something that I need to get from this. And in this moment, maybe, my, like, egoically right now, I may not be able to see it, but if I take a step back, I'll be able to kind of analyze a little bit and see what I get, what I get to get out of this.
Yes. Curiosity was such a pivotal piece for me.
Yes.
I'd get curious. This is really interesting. Yeah. Interesting is always a word that I.
Yeah.
What am I feeling, and what's my trigger here? What is this trigger about? And if you are really present and curious, boy, you can unravel that all the way back to something that happened when you were 4 years old. The trigger goes so far back.
It does. And in that moment, I think we're doing the work to heal without doing the work to heal. We're aware of, okay, why is this happening? Where does it come from? And am I going to carry this moving forward, or is this where it ends?
I also am always looking for the pattern. Like, where else has this come up, and where else have I felt this way? Where else have I felt diminished or unworthy or unseen or excluded? Or I got really masterful at asking myself really good questions.
Yeah. I think we have to, because if we want to evolve and grow at some point, again, it's about questioning everything. This is my truth, but is it really my truth, or is it a truth that I'm carrying from last week or last night or 20 years ago? And just constantly in each moment of awareness, questioning, how am I feeling? Is this really how I'm feeling? Or is my ego telling me I need to feel this because of, some experience I've had in the past, or an experience that I'm foreseeing, or, even stress. Stress is something that I don't know that I'll ever be able to completely eradicate from, my being.
Oh,
And
I
so
think you're on your way. I mean, you've been making a lot of choices, which are so beautiful and unconventional. And one of them, which I thought was beautiful, is you just took some time off and spent some time in France.
yes.
Tell me a little bit about how that came about and what it was like to have that space.
It was incredible. My husband and I, we got a boat 2 years ago, and we've always loved the ocean. We've always loved being out on the ocean. There's just something about it that it's inexplainable in words. It's just a feeling. And so we had been looking for quite some time at getting something maybe a little bigger that we could actually stay on for longer periods of time. And we came across a catamaran out in France. And so we went to see it in November and decided that was our next step. And it felt aligned. And it's the weirdest thing because, it's halfway around the world. It's, it's not in our country. It's not, but it felt like the right thing. And so, we spent 2 weeks during the holidays, getting it ready and staying on it and seeing how that would be, because we're a family of 5. So we wanted to kind of get the feel for what that would be like. And it was just amazing. For me, again, it's about the experiences we get to have. We sold our house last year, and we've evolved obviously and grown. And so the big house, the big yard, all that, didn't really serve us anymore. And so we're looking to live more simply, if that makes sense, in the sense of, the responsibilities of having the house and whatnot. And so we want to be more free, I guess, is what we're looking for, is more freedom and more experiences.
And you're creating that and choosing it. And we were speaking briefly before we started the podcast about how it's never going to be the right time.
No.
Because everybody wants to do these things. And then they go, well, when I'm 65 and I retire, I'm going to like start living my life. Right. And what I've admired so much about you is to watch you just say, you know what? No, we're actually just going to do it. Yes. And you don't announce it. You don't make a big deal about it. All of a sudden it's like, oh, now Jen's living at the beach. She's not in her house anymore. Oh, now Jen's in France, just kind of cruising around with the family. And taking time. You homeschool the kids, so that also gives some flexibility when it comes to traveling at off-season times or taking extended periods of time to travel and things like that, which is so beautiful. I want to say what I admire about you the most is your ability to have the vision and then create the dream.
Yeah. It's been mind-blowing for me this whole past year. I was talking to a friend the other day, and when I created my vision board for 2022, this catamaran was like one that we had kind of seen in the mix, and it went on my vision board. And I'm like, now we actually we spent 2 weeks on it in France, and it's amazing. And, there's part of me that's like, okay, we want to live a simpler life. And, people will see, oh, well, you get a catamaran. That's not simple. And it's not simple, but for me, it represents,
I don't know. It feels freedom, and it also feels like letting go of a lot of the material things you have with a home, because you just have your clothes and your toiletries, and off you go, your laptop, and off you go. And it's totally simplifying and paring down, in my opinion.
But it just the freedom of it. Because again, we love the ocean so much, and I love experiencing different cultures and just being in different cities. When I was talking about France earlier, just the architecture and, learning more about different spaces, and even the way they eat, sounds kind of silly, but some of the things they eat out there are totally different than, what we're used to here. And just being exposed to that, to me, is just so amazing. And having
it kind of feeds your soul. It nourishes your soul in a way, just to be immersed in a different human experience.
Yes. And, life was slower over there. I was telling the children, it was funny because, you go out to a restaurant, and you go out to a restaurant here, and a good percentage of people are on their phones. There's 2 people sitting face to face, and they're just both on their phones. And in France, there was none of that. Restaurants were packed, but people are just talking and they're exchanging, and even like walking on the boardwalk, there's the kids are on their little scooters, and they're walking the dogs, and they're chatting, they're having conversations, they have their midday breaks. And it was just, for me, it was like, wow, like, you see some people on their phones, but not even, not even
like here, where it's just a complete time. Yeah. And I think also distraction, because you don't engage. I think this culture is taking away from that interpersonal connection and eye contact and conversational exchange. For my husband and I, we live in the city, and so there's a lot of great cafes and coffee shops and stuff that we can walk to, and that's just kind of become a thing for us. We'll just walk a couple of blocks to the closest cafe and get some coffee, and actually just, we find that we communicate more doing that than in our home, because when we're in our home, yes, we have time and we're here together, But when do you actually sit down outside from a meal maybe and have a conversation? There's just,
Right.
we're just kind of in our
Yeah.
own
Moving
orbits.
part. Yeah.
You have to make an effort and to expose your kids to that, I think is a gift.
Yes. Because to me, like as much as I use technology like everybody else,
Of
we're
course.
on social media but for me, it's always been important with the kids, like, like our dinner time. It's like no phones at the table, we have dinner time, we communicate. And being out there was really nice because our Wi-Fi was more restricted,
Mm.
right? So we're playing Uno every night and we're going out for walks. And, in the morning we're walking to the bakery to get our croissants. And it's just the way
Yeah.
of life is so different. And for me, that it's really important to be able to have this experience because I desire for them to see something different, so that they can choose. Because again, we're talking about detachment. And I think with my kids, that was one of the big ones for me, is detaching from their experiences and their contracts and what that should look like. And it was like a
What
whole thing,
a gift. What a gift. My kids are grown and I've also done the same thing. And I think it's rare that children get to experience parents who have no agenda for them.
Yes. And I
I
try,
did
to just
when they
leave
were
it up
young.
to them.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, like when they're younger, you always, we try to guide them, but I feel like it's our programming that guides us to guide them.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say when they were younger, I was very much unconscious and in that programming. So it was the sports and the music and the hustle and the get the good grades and da 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 da. And then as I did my work and realized, we all get to have our own experience here. They don't need to be a programmed experience of my expectation. I was able to step back and just really be like, wow, you guys are beautiful and you're going to find your way. So I'll support and love you. And that's my role here. It's just to allow you to explore your life and not control, intervene. I find that I am very silent a lot of the time, even though I have thoughts that I want to express. I just keep them to myself. Like, okay, we'll see how that's going to work out.
Yeah.
But I think it's a
Yeah.
gift to be able to give that to your children and the ability for them to be whoever they need to be.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like even like there's still remnants sometimes of things that way the things, should be, and there's no way they should be. It's kind of just reminding myself that, they get to be who they need to be, and the experiences. And if we can provide, a broadened experience so they can have a broader view of what's available to them, and then they get to choose. And even if they choose something that may not align with what we believe, is the best choice, we still have to let them make those choices, which is really challenging,
Yeah,
but
for
it's something
sure.
where
I
for
think it
me,
is difficult. It's difficult sometimes to truly love them enough to allow them to make whatever choice, even knowing in your heart of hearts that's gonna have some pain.
I
But
think
not saying
sometimes because we're doing the work, it's like we don't want them to have those experiences before but at the same time, it's like, well, who am I to dictate what experience they need to have, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think that they're gonna grow because of that freedom gifted and because that they know that they're loved for who they are, not all the boxes they're checking,
Right.
right? Because
Right. And
there's a
that was a
lot of
big
that.
thing for us at homeschool, is not being in that box. When I started homeschooling, it was like I wanted it to be very structured because I felt like that was, and then we kind of got into, okay, no, what do you feel that you'd like to learn? Because I feel like a lot of children, they're not good at a certain thing. They may not just be interested in it, and so trying to
That's a good point.
explore, what are you interested in? Because I could give my son a book on a lot of things that he will have no desire to even look at. But if I give him a book on fishing or something about construction, or he'll be all over that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted them to be able to explore what they really enjoyed. Is it artistically, maybe I have one that's artistically inclined more than the others.
Mm-hmm.
One, wants to be a vet. She just loves every animal on the surface of the planet. It's just, and allowing them to explore that as we homeschooled has been really amazing, because they've gotten to learn things that are outside of the norm. Maybe, maybe they're not following the curriculum public schools are following, but they're learning in depth about things that they're interested in. And so they're retaining that information, so much more.
I also feel like that innate desire or wherever they're drawn is drawing them to their soul purpose. So to allow them to actually follow that inner compass and nurture and enhance the knowledge and the experience around that is allowing them to really step into their soul purpose instead of that programmed high school, college, corporate job, which sounds absolutely soul crushing to me.
Yes. Yes, very much
for you
so.
to be able to offer that is so beautiful. I wanted to ask you about something that I feel has been really helpful for me in my life in the last year, which was giving myself permission to be silent and not productive, which was so against everything I've been about in my life. And I wanted to ask you if you've had that same kind of experience where you found yourself being a little quieter and a little less of a go-getter in terms of traditional accomplishment and productivity and putting content out and things like that. And if you have been in that space, how has that changed you, and what have you noticed about yourself?
What I noticed is in my go-getter, just typical me, I was running away from a hustle from years ago in the business that we still have actually. And I had replaced it with another kind of hustle that felt aligned because I really, truly am passionate about what I do. But there was a little bit of, okay, let's post, X times a day, and I found myself not resonating with that in the last year. It's kind of been like I need to take a step back. And I've still been posting online, but not nearly as much. And I felt that there's no one size fits all. And for me to be authentic and integrity with me, I needed to take that step back because I needed to reevaluate, is this really, it was great and it was what I was doing, but is this where my soul is guiding me to next? And if so, am I continuing the same pattern, or do I have to just rearrange a few things? And so I had to take a step back and just honor my need for space and honor my need to slow down. And again, with, selling the house, and there were other things that my attention, needed to be towards, and that, energetically I had to be all there. We've lived in that house 15 years. We'd raised our kids there. So, it was a big move.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of, we were saying detaching from all of that, because that was, to me, when we got that house, it was like, that was success.
Right.
I finally gotten like the,
We
the
made
house.
it.
And so detaching from that took time. And so just energetically kind of closing that chapter of our lives, and again, just rethinking, and in tuning in to see where I was guided to, and allowing that. Because for me, if there's something that I think that I need to do, it was always like, okay, it's now, like you said, that perfectionism, it was about trying to do it all and do it all right. And so for me to take that step back, it was a little unnerving, I feel like, and it was definitely out of my comfort zone. But it was necessary, and it was the best thing that I could have done.
Yeah. How has it changed you? How has that changed you? Just giving yourself space and silence a little bit more.
I feel like it's allowed me, number one, to stand in my power a lot more, in the sense of there's nothing that I need to do. I will do what I'm guided to do and what feels totally right, and using that discernment again, and taking that step back before I go to do something. If I'm going to go post content or whatever it is, it's asking myself, is this really what I desire to do? Is this really what I get to do? Or is it something that preconceived notion of, okay, I got to do this, it's definitely allowed me more space to question, like we were saying, and to be more aware. And to recognize that personally and energetically for my own ascension process, it was all, again, everything was orchestrated perfectly. You know, it was just giving me that space to stand and say, I'm choosing me. I'm choosing that inner compass in all areas of my life, you know, and choosing to act upon my feelings and my knowings, not what anything or anyone around me was saying or portraying. Or it's given me definitely a broader, I think a broader, not inner knowing, you know, knowledge of who I am and where I get to go. Because I feel like there was a lot, even as much work as I had done, you know, it's always that, like, didn't I do this? It was recognizing where I still had those blind spots, you know, there were still some things that I was allowing to lead the way, and it wasn't my way. And, you know, knowing that my way is my way and that's all I need.
It feels expansive. It feels like
Yes.
in the stepping back, even more opens up to you. When you're
Yes.
in the hustle, when you're in the doing, it's a little more constrictive because you're really energetically compressed in the doing and the going and the, but when you kind of just take your foot off the pedal and step back and just take it all in, it feels like there's just this sense of expansion and more possibility
Yes.
that can come
Yes,
in.
for sure. Because I do feel like there was, it was funny because to recognize that there was still a little, like there was a level of hustle. It wasn't the same, you know, it was a different type of hustle, but to recognize that it was still there was kind of like, really, you know, really. But yeah, it's definitely felt like an expansive year. A lot of growth, just a lot more certainty as well, and just trusting, you know.
You also get
Um,
to know yourself on a deeper level. Like for
yes,
me, it was a very quiet year, took some time off, had a grandbaby. So
yes,
I just committed to spending time with her, you know, and not putting any time into my business at all for a while. And you know what came up for me, Jim, was this, and I knew I was working through something because it was this feeling of how do I define myself when I'm not doing anything, right? Air quotes, not doing anything.
mm-hmm.
But I was doing something so meaningful, which was
Yes,
being present for this beautiful soul and participating in her development and holding space for her mom and dad. And I was doing this really sacred work, but there was that part of me that needed to be healed. Like, yeah, but you're just watching your bank account go down, but you're not working. You're not monthly expense, you know. It was a really huge time of growth for me to really be present to what's important
yes,
for me as a soul,
yeah,
that I would never get this time back. And then I needed to really redefine myself and really step forward as a soul and my soul energy and soul essence versus what we're programmed to believe defines us. And that was kind of that last piece that I was unhooking, was that if I'm not doing this human work and not making money, that then I'm somehow diminished, which wasn't the case at all. It was like this was the most expansive year for me as a soul because I took time to not be attached to that. But I had to unhook from it. You know what I mean? In a
yes,
way.
yeah.
Circumstance
It's
and
challenging, you know,
right.
with everything around us. It's really hard to take that time and to be okay with, like you said, you know, being, and it's the most important work.
It is. It is. And then also to allow ourselves to do it without that mental story trying to define your choice as, I don't know, maybe you should call some clients, see if they want to come back, or whatever it is, I
Yeah.
restructured my whole business. I think you've done a lot of restructuring in yours. And I think it's going to be more impactful because we took the time and space and gave ourselves the grace to just be present to our unfolding and trust our inner compass and knowing, right? Our inner guidance,
Yeah.
100%.
Because for me, that's the most, like, for me, the most important thing is my journey, and not in a selfish way, but I
Right,
need to
right.
be on my journey and be aligned for me to be able to provide space for somebody else to do the same,
100%. I'm so glad that you were able to honor that. And do you find that being in that space of deeper presence and um, almost being more complete energetically is how I feel, more expansive, that you have been able to really download some bigger dreams and download some bigger, or not even download, but allow those things to come forward that might have been muted or diminished because of the way you were living before.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt. There are quite a few dreams that we're in the midst of actually bringing into reality, um, which I honestly didn't think were necessarily possible even just 2 years ago. Even knowing that everything's possible, like this just wasn't
Right.
one thing like that my human mind could kind of wrap its head around. We're going to be taking time off with the kids, like you were saying, what's most important, where's the value, and where are we going to feel more expansive. And our kids are getting older. My oldest is going to be 17 this year, so college is around the corner. My second daughter as well. And so we know that whatever they choose, whether it's college or not, things are going to change. Inevitably they're growing, they're becoming young adults, and so we want to spend as much time as possible with them. So we've decided that we are going to go on a 5 to 6 month trip, to start with them, traveling the Mediterranean and just living a simple yet adventurous and a life that's full of experiences.
Incredible.
I think we're so attached to, for me, my word for 2023, even, 2022, is freedom. I want the ultimate freedom. And what does that look like? What does that feel like? And, how do I make that happen? And again, when things are totally aligned, they kind of come
Yeah.
together. And this kind of just came together. We've been talking about things like this since probably 2013. When we
Wow.
first
It
started
has
about,
been 10 years in the
yeah,
making. And then to have this catamaran
yes,
come
yeah,
available. I mean, don't you marvel
yes.
at the beauty in the unfolding and the magic in the unfolding of almost like it's beyond your wildest dreams. And also, you could never have consciously planned it this way.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it looks different than what our plan was in 2013. And we've
Sure.
just talked about it, throughout the years. Um, and everything kind of just landed where it needed to for us to do that. So it's going to be a great experience. Again, you know, the simple life. Like, I want to go to the market. Like when we were in France, we'd wake up every morning and there's a market of fresh fruits and vegetables, and go pick what we needed for the day, and the bakery, and, visiting the medieval towns and learning, how the people live. And just, so I'm really excited about
Love it.
experiencing that,
That's
and
gonna be so
kids.
special for your family because
Yes.
you won't have the diversions of the kids having a job or the kids having sports or the kids having these um it's going to be so I think feel like it's going to just solidify your family unit in a way before everybody launches. It's like that last moment of connection before everybody launches off, and I think it's going to be so valuable for them and you guys as well, you
Yes.
parents.
Yes. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And, like I was saying earlier, electronics are, I think, a big part of everybody's lives, and they still will be, but I feel like this will give us more. We love being out in nature and having those experiences. So I think this will be such a great opportunity to kind of lay back a little bit from that,
I can't
um,
wait to follow your journey because I love the pictures you post. And what I always feel when I look at your posts and your pictures is the integrity in your heart in there. Like it's so authentic, and it's just always so authentic. And I think we need more of that in the world. And we need more of that in social media. And it's a beautiful life, but it's just, I feel the love in it. I don't feel there's no ego in it. It's just like, I am so blessed and enjoying this. And by you sharing that from that energy, we get to be blessed and enjoy it with you. And I love that. So I hope you
And
can.
that's the whole purpose. I desire for other women to know that they can create whatever it is that they desire. I feel like there's a lot on social media around luxury, and for some that's what they desire, and that's great. But I feel like a lot of people feel like that's what they need to strive for. And for me, it's, well, if a cabin in the middle of the woods, thousands of miles from a city is what lights you up, then that gets to be your dream, and you get to make it come true. There's no right or wrong way. Again, I think we all have our own journey that's going to lead to that dream, and we all get to make it happen. Like you said, anything's possible. And for me, like, this year's proven that to me multiple times over.
Yeah.
And so for women, and anybody really, I work mostly with women. So, because I always feel like, when we do the work, our children, the children around us, everybody around us benefits. But anybody out there, can make anything happen for themselves. It's about really staying in alignment and in integrity, like you said. And I think there's a lot of noise out there. And so it's important to quiet that down. It's important to go within and really see, what do I desire? And even like I said, the house we had, it was like, for me, it was the preconceived notion that was success. Having the house, having this, having that. And I don't want that. That really doesn't bring me joy.
Resonate anymore. I think sometimes we have to have it to know that we don't want it, or that we're not that person anymore. The old version of us really wanted that for whatever reason, but we keep evolving and changing. And as we evolve and change, what is going to fill our cup is going to change also. Right.
Yeah. And, I know that what makes me happy now, probably in 5 years from now, won't be the same. And that's okay.
But you only have the now, right? So you just follow your heart now, and it's going to lead you to the future. And also, I think it's important that people give themselves permission to have a dream that looks different from what is being presented to them by their families and their cultures and their social media and their friend circle and their work. There's just so much programming out there. And I think it's so important for people to have a dream that is theirs and theirs alone, and give themselves permission to plant that seed and nurture it and water it and see what flourishes and grows when you truly honor it.
Yes, without a doubt. Because I do believe that, society and, family sometimes pushes us to, even the person who does desire that luxury and sometimes they'll feel bad and not go for it because it's not the right thing, according to who knows who. In the same way as the person who wants the cabin in the woods thinks that they need to strive to want more. It's kind of like, no, what do you desire truly? And I think sometimes we don't even know,
because we've been so blinded by all the programs, right, telling us what we need and what it should look like, and people so unconscious that they feel like their way is the way.
Yes,
I think we need to stress that your way is the way. Your needs, your wants, your dreams are the way, and nobody needs to validate that. But it takes a lot of work to get to a place of empowerment where you stand in your power and say, no, this is who I am and this is what I want.
Yes,
and your opinion has no place in my life. You can have your opinion.
I respect your opinion, but I'll respectfully decline to take it as my own.
Exactly. We're busy over here creating our magic. So you just do you over there. Do you have any parting words, Jen, for anyone who, struggles with really trusting themselves and their inner guidance? A lot of people have inner knowing, but don't trust it. So do you have any words of wisdom around that?
I think you know, coming back to what we said earlier, is getting really quiet and putting those blinders on, you know, allowing yourself to take that step back and play with it, you know, test yourself, ask yourself the questions, and then take the steps. You know, for me, it's about listening and then taking inspired and aligned action. And then if you realize that that's not where you desire to be, then course correct, because there's no wrong way. Like we said earlier, you know, any right turn that brings you somewhere you don't desire to be, there was a lesson there to be learned, right? And so just taking the time to harness that inner knowing and to trust that compass, even in the little things, you know, when you go to get something to drink, what do I really want to drink right now? Right? Am I going to grab the water because everybody says I need to drink 20 gallons of water a day? Or do I feel like a tea? Or, you know, simple things like that, that sounds silly, you know, even what you want to eat, what you feel like listening to, just being more mindful with the choices you make. And I think the more we do that, the better we become at trusting that inner guidance, you know?
I think that's so wise and perfect. And thank you so much for your valuable time, wisdom,
Thank you.
sharing today. I love you so much. And I'm so glad we could have this sacred time together and share. To my audience, thank you guys for tuning in. Be kind to yourselves, love yourselves. Take care, and I love y'all. We'll see you next time.